All right. So Singer is gonna again, pardon me. Singer is again gonna be much more pointed than what we saw with Kant, and in particular, he's gonna use some language that might be a bit confrontational, might be a bit kind of uncomfortable, but that's part of his aim is to showcase that we need to take animal suffering. We need to take it very seriously. And so if we think back to, again, utilitarianism of the maximization of pleasure and the minimization of pain, and we think about how that framework might be applied to the treatment of animals, then that's kind of how and where Singer is going to kind of like, again, find his base here. As he's talking about, and he introduces this idea of suffering. Okay? So if we think about pain, we can also think about suffering, whether that's a human being, whether that's an animal. And so this is where we get on 432 again, a pretty, I think, powerful kind of outlook, where Singer writes the following: If a being suffers, there can be no moral justification for refusing to take that suffering into consideration. No matter what the nature of the being, the principle of equality requires that its suffering be counted equally with other like suffering, insofar as rough comparisons can be made of any other being. This is why the limit of sentience is the only defensible boundary of concern to the interests of others. Okay? To mark this boundary by some characteristic like intelligence or rationality would be to mark it in an arbitrary way. Okay? And so what he's saying here is that when we think about the way we treat animals, and you think about various animals having various levels of intelligence. Okay, arguably human beings have high levels of intelligence. We are an animal, right? Dolphins have high levels of intelligence. I mean, a lot of animals, right, can do a lot of things that other animals can't do, so they are intelligent in their own right. So Singer's making the observation here that defensible it's not defensible on the grounds of saying, well, these animals are more intelligent, therefore, like, we shouldn't treat them poorly. They might be more acute to suffering. Rather, he's making the claim here, okay, where he makes the claim: if a being is not capable of suffering or experiencing enjoyment or happiness, there's nothing to be taken into account. This is why the limit of sentience, okay, sentience should be kind of the marker here. And so now what we have to do is we have to ask the question about, well, what is sentience? To be a sentient being, okay? And this is where we again kind of have this conversation on what sentience is. And sentience is defined as the capacity to feel, perceive, or experience subjectively. Okay? Sentience is the capacity to feel, perceive, or experience subjectively. Okay? So we're not measuring intelligence. We're not measuring rationality in some sort of arbitrary way that maybe one is prone to do in thinking about how human beings distinguish themselves from non-human animals. But this point that Singer is making is that if we think about animal suffering and we think about sentience, it does kind of therefore open up a whole cornucopia of possible animals that fall under this category of being sentient beings, right? Even when you think about something like an insect or a worm, right? And if you've ever kind of gone fishing and you've had like a worm, and you can kind of like break a worm in half, right? And you can see it kind of writhe around. Like, arguably, it might be feeling pain, but it's feeling something, okay? And that's Singer's point here, is that it's feeling something, because that's kind of one of the characteristics of sentience, is the capacity to feel or perceive or experience something subjectively, okay? And so this is, again, kind of part of the aim of again, Singer isn't talking about intelligence. He's not talking about rationality. He's not talking about, responsiveness to human beings. Singer's talking about just the capacity to feel. Okay? or experience sensations, if that's another way of kind of like thinking about it. And so we can again think about all sorts of animals, small, large, etc., that have varying abilities of experiencing sensations. And so this is again where Singer takes this move, is on the basis of sentience. We should reframe and consider anew how it is we treat non-human animals. Okay? And so that'll be, again, this kind of next paragraph, the next video. And then I think we'll be able to kind of wrap it up here.